Hey everyone, welcome to Papa's Workshop. Today I want to do a little something different. Yes, I'm going to be using the xTool laser and I'm going to be cutting out some boxes. But the more important thing is I want to show you how to frame the xTool using that red grid. Now I know that has confused a lot of different people. In addition to that, I want to take a look at the smoke extraction. I'm going to show you a couple of different ways, and one I think that you're going to really like. This is going to be a little bit different video. These are the boxes that I'm making with the drawers. So each box has 2 drawers in it. And I'm going to be doing a number of little tests and experiments today, but I wanted to show you the end result. The first little test that I want to show you is being able to raise up the honeycomb off of this metal plate. Now it's raised up roughly about 1 inch. But the bottom line is, smoke has a tendency to get trapped into that honeycomb when it's sitting flat down into that metal plate. By raising this up, you should be able to get a much better airflow. And that's what I want to be able to show today in this first test. In Lightburn, I can simply go to the art library and come over to the hobby station. What I was working on is this right here, the rack A and the drawers. Well, I've further separated this down just to the rack A drawers, and I'm going to bring this over here. I'm going to bring that into the design. And I've already made all of this using the different scraps. Now, in a perfect world, I would just take one sheet of the plywood and put it down and be able to cut out one whole drawer at a time. Well, trying to save the scraps and use simply the scraps, what I can literally do is take the different pieces and set them off to the side, because I really don't need to cut but the pieces that I actually need based on the size of the scrap. So that can just set off to the side. And right now, the only thing that I need to concentrate on is this bottom piece. And I can zoom out just a little bit. You can see there are some other things there too. And I can actually, if I wish, just highlight all of this and cut it and get it out of the way, because I really don't need that, and it's still saved in the art library. So that's another thing that you can do. But realize this, when you engrave and cut this out, it's not going to cut over here. But for the just sake of keeping the work area clean, this is what I'm going to work with. I have this piece now, which is the bottom of the drawer, reasonably close to the center. And I want to look for some plywood now that I can actually cut this out with. I found a piece of scrap, and I actually think this section right here will work. And you can see I've already cut out other pieces out of this, and this was over in my scrap bin. I want to check to see now if I can get a bottom out of that section there. By framing this piece now, as you have seen earlier in the video, I can determine if that bottom piece will fit into that. You can see right there, I've dropped out onto the bottom edge, and I need to make just a slight adjustment because there's not a lot of extra room in this. And you can see by framing this, it moves slow enough that if it's cutting on the outside and cutting off of my plywood, I can just slide it over ever so slightly to be able to make that adjustment and make sure that it will fit within that area. Now I'm going to frame it one more time, since I've made several different movements, just to make sure that it's going to fit. And as you can see with the framing operation, yes, I can get one piece out of this, and that is fantastic. So now that that's been verified, I'll hit start and the cutout will begin. Now I have my vacuum set up so it'll pull that smoke out of the bottom, and I want to be able to take a look to see just how effective that is. I'm not sure if you can see this in the camera, but there's quite a bit of smoke in this area that's being extracted into my air extractor that's ventilating outside. Now most of this smoke is from underneath. There is some smoke on top, but all of it is being directed to the inlet on the smoke extractor, and that's exactly what I wanted. I'm not seeing any smoke that is escaping and going out into the room itself, and that is what I was hoping for. So with this dust extractor, being able to pull the vast majority from underneath and get it out, and the little bit that you see across the top, you can see how it's flowing directly into the air extractor. Fantastic. So this is working actually better than what I had hoped for. My goal for this is to be able to set up a dedicated table to be able to have an air extractor system such as this to be able to pull all of the smoke out and vented outside of the shop. And this is the type of test that I wanted to be able to do, because you really don't realize how much smoke is trapped inside the honeycomb with it laying flat on that metal bed. By raising it up just at roughly 1 inch high, makes it where all of that smoke can easily be extracted out. So this little test was 100% successful. I found another piece of the scrap plywood, and I think I can get the remaining 2 pieces out of this quite easily. So I'm going to slide this over here, and then I'm going to go over to the computer and duplicate the base that I have, or the bottom of the drawer, so that I can cut out 2 of them at one time. Now with the plywood that I have, I am going to simply hit Control C and Control V, and that will duplicate it. The next thing I want to do is just rotate it, and I can grab the little handle right here, and I can rotate this up to 90 degrees and put it right there. I think that will be good. Then I'm going to highlight this one and do the same thing. I'm going to slide it over, grab this handle, and rotate it and put it right there. And then I'll bring this one and put it up next to it. And I'll keep this fairly close. In fact, I'm going to slide it over a little bit. And then I'll take this one and slide it over. I don't have a lot of room to be able to play with. I can hit the Control key and then use the arrow key and slide this over and get it closer. I think that will look good. Now I want to frame this and see if this will capture everything. Now this is where a camera would be really nice, but I don't have a camera set up on this machine. However, without the camera, I can still use the framing feature to be able to align this exactly where it needs to be. So even without a camera, to be able to get the perfect alignment, I can still do it very easily using the frame feature to be able to align this so that I know it will fit on the plywood. So that way I'll be able to cut out both of the drawer bottoms at the same time out of this piece of scrap. And that, I think, will be the last 2 pieces that I need for this project. Now I wanted to double check to make sure that this plywood, because it was a different type, was still the same thickness. And by double checking it, yes it is. Now how did I move it over to the center without messing up and causing a problem? Let me show you real quick. When you have the light burn set up this way, using the absolute coordinates, I can come over here to this icon right there, and then I can click and touch, and the laser will move to that point. So I can do any point that I wish, and you can see the laser move directly to that position. Now that works out really nice for being able to do operations like this. Now the other thing is, it still knows exactly where this project is going to be. So I don't need to do anything else other than come over and hit the start key. So let me grab my glasses, and you can see how that moved directly back up to the top corner, and it's beginning cutting out these 2 bottom drawer parts. In this view, you can get a real good look of what's happening underneath this honeycomb. You can see a lot of smoke that's being generated, and it's being pulled directly to the air extractor, and that is a good thing. And if this honeycomb was down against a metal that you see on the workbench, that all of that smoke would be trapped in that honeycomb itself, and that's not what you want. So this is an ideal way to be able to help extract all of that smoke out of the shop area and get it outside. I strongly suggest being able to raise up your honeycomb off of that metal plate to better get all of that smoke out of the shop. I want to show you this on the top view, and you can see that smoke flowing underneath this honeycomb and being extracted out. The other thing I want to point out, if you look at the top area, you're not seeing a lot of smoke that's being generated. All of that smoke is being pulled down through the honeycomb and out through the bottom. One more thing I want to point out to you. Look at all of the blue light that you see reflected off of the honeycomb. Just because you have a screen over the laser itself, you still have a ton of blue light that is being refracted all over the entire shop. So please, by all means, wear those safety glasses. Do not rely on the shield that is provided by the lasers to be able to protect your eyes. It is not enough. You need to be able to wear your safety glasses at all time when you're doing the engraving with the lasers. Do not risk your eyes. I want to show you the beginning part where I made the individual pieces of the drawer and was really experimenting with the framing feature. Now the piece of plywood that I have down right now is the largest piece that I had, and I actually have the laser sitting on top of the plywood, and that sits on top of the honeycomb grid that's below the plywood. I know a lot of people have a lot of questions about framing, especially using the red X that's found on the xTool machine. So please, this is an opportunity to learn and ask all the questions. Please ask questions and I will try to answer them. So I really welcome any question that you have about framing, especially using the red grid line to be able to frame your projects, because this I think will help a lot of people. So this is not just a video on engraving or cutting out a few little boxes. Now just for those who want to know, this is going at 600 millimeters per minute at 100% power, so we'll get that out of the way. One more thing is I am doing multiple passes. This is set up for 3 passes right now, and as I changed material, I actually had to go to 4 passes. And then later on in the video, you see when the material changes yet again, quite frankly, 2 passes would have been sufficient. But here again, that's the difference in the types of material that you're cutting versus the speed and the power setting. That did not change. I let that stay the same the entire time. So there's a lot going on in this video that I'm going to hopefully sort out for you and make some sense of it. Now this actually is a second piece of scrap plywood, and you can see where I have cut out multiple projects before, and I wanted to be able to fit in just a couple, 3 pieces into some of the material that I could utilize and not have in the scrap bin anymore. Now right now I'm cutting this material out with the honeycomb sitting directly onto the metal plate underneath, and you can see how that smoke is being trapped in the honeycomb, and I'm having to pull with the extractor up and out, and that certainly is not as efficient as what you just saw in that previous scene where the honeycomb bed is actually raised up. I'm to the point now where I really want to maximize the plywood that I have, and you can see how I'm cutting actually very close to the edge to be able to maximize the plywood. And here's another little small scrap piece I was able to get 1 part out of. Not much extra room there, but it was better than having this thrown away in the trash can. I was able to get 1 part. These boxes are actually what I am building. We got these glued together. I'm cutting out the individual drawers, and there's actually 2 drawers for each of these boxes. And I'm to the point where I'm beginning to run out of the scrap plywood, and I want to use the smallest pieces possible to be able to get the parts out of. And here's some examples of the different parts in the scrap left over after cutting out using nothing but scraps. And at this point, there's not too much left of this material. And of course, these pieces just drop right out. This laser does an absolutely fantastic job of being able to cut these pieces out. Now this is a 5mm plywood, and it's being cut on 3 passes. Now one of the things that I will do is take a scrap piece of plywood and one of the actual parts. And from there, I want to see what I can do as far as how to get an additional part out of it. And I'm thinking maybe I can get 2 parts out of this. So if I take the original part and kind of get an idea and lay it out, and I can realize that, quite frankly, there's only going to be 1 part that I can get out of this plywood. But that's okay. That's 1 part that will be done, and it's out of a piece of leftover plywood. So now that I know that 1 will fit in there, I'll just set that 1 part up into the computer and cut that. I had set that 1 part in basically the center of the cutting bed, and then I'm framing that. And then I can slide the piece of plywood over just ever so slightly to be able to make sure that it actually fits. And then I'll frame it one more time. And you can see it comes right across the top and then across the bottom. And so that's a little bit too much. And I can make a very small adjustment and make sure by framing it that it's going to actually cut out the entire part. And just to verify, I'll frame it one more time just to make sure that all of the part will be inside of that area. There's not much extra room to play with. Now granted, just for those out there, and realize if I had a camera that was attached to this, all of this legwork doing this would not be necessary. But to frame it, I now know, and I'm using the red grid line to be able to frame this. So after framing it several times, I have the plywood exactly where I want it. I'm going to do this final frame just to verify everything. That way I don't have to move the plywood again. I'm happy with that. Now I can hit start and actually start cutting this out. And knowing that it's going to engrave exactly where I want, and I will have a good part, and it's not going to cut on the outside into these old areas where the previous material was cut out. So after the 3 passes, it's finished, and let's take a look at the finished product. You can see just how close to the top edge that I came, and this just pops right out. Let me get it close up in the camera so you can see the finished part, and that was ideal. And here's another example where I'm framing to be able to fill in just for these pieces that will fit into this area. Now this was a small area of scrap plywood that was left over, and you can see how it sticks out on the side of the xTool, but that's okay. It still fits. I don't have to spend a lot of time at the bandsaw cutting out all of this. I can still just take this scrap plywood, drop it onto the bed, and know that it's going to work just fine using this frame feature. And trust the red grid line, because that is going to be the border on where this part is. You don't have to worry about realizing that it's not over the print head. It is offset. It was offset by design. So trust this grid. And here's the actual part after it's been cut. And I can just lift up the corner of the xTool, slide this out, and then you can see how these 2 pieces will just pop out. And this is the one that I just cut out, and you can see that dropped out real easy, and that gives me very little scrap left over. This time I want to cut out these 4 pieces. I think the plywood that I have on the machine is going to be enough. So with these in place, let's frame it and find out. So I'm going right across that top edge of this plywood, and it looks like that is going to be a perfect alignment there. It will come down. Do I have enough space across the bottom? It's very close, but yes, I do. So the framing is what is the key to this whole entire process. Now that I know it will fit, all I need to do is hit start. I can then cut out these parts knowing that it's going to fit perfectly and I'll have some perfect parts in this very small piece of plywood that I have left over. So here are the 4 pieces finished. You can see just how close to the top edge of the plywood that I came, and this is exactly what I wanted to be able to accomplish. Well, here's the little scrap pile that I have left over after cutting out all of these parts. So hopefully this video has been able to show you how to utilize the framing feature to be able to maximize your material. The project's now finished, and we did this with all scraps. So that's not bad to get 2 more boxes done with the total of 4 drawers, and didn't really cost anything but a little bit of time because it was all scrap material. I want to thank everybody for watching this video today. I hope you was able to learn something. And please, if you have questions about framing or extracting the smoke out of the shop, please leave that question down below so that I can answer them. I'm going to do my absolute best to answer every single question that you ask about the framing and about how to be able to extract the smoke out of the shop. Now, this was just a test in my own shop because I'm going to be adding some other things to this in the future. This was just my own personal first test to be able to see how effective it was. So hopefully this will turn into a video down the road. But I do want to thank everybody for watching. Especially I want to thank my Patreons for supporting this channel. Your support really does help a tremendous amount. So again, thank you for watching. I look forward to seeing you in the future videos. So for now, bye-bye. And I can't wait to see you in the shop again real soon.